Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Amanda Vitello, and I work here at the College Board. I'm going to be your host and moderator this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Just a few quick things. We are recording this session, and it will be available in Springboard Digital under the Professional Learning tab. And we'll have this posted within the next 2 weeks, possibly earlier, but certainly no later than that. So you'll have it available for reference. Additionally, we are wrapping up a resource that will help walk you through the steps that Tiffany's going to walk you through in terms of getting to know Springboard Digital. And once that's completed, we will go ahead and email that to folks as well so that you'll have that available as a resource afterwards and can reference and work through Springboard Digital on your own, because I know it's a lot to take in one sitting in a webinar. We have a couple folks joining us today. We have Jessica Brockman, who's going to be on and available to answer questions that come in about Springboard and Springboard Digital. She's on our product team and really focused on humanities, and Springboard was a Springboard educator for many, many years. And we're very grateful to have her here. And I'm going to go ahead and really pass it off to Tiffany Yango-Au. I'm so grateful to her. She's going to be walking us through Springboard Digital. And really, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out. I know many of you have very little summer break left. And so we appreciate you taking an hour and spending it with us. Tiffany?
Good morning, everyone. It is bright and early in my time zone. I think 6 o'clock in the morning. But yes, I want to echo what Amanda has said. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Many of us are looking at maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, hopefully maybe more weeks of summer left. For myself, this is it. I think I start on Wednesday and then the students come back next week. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I will introduce myself. My name is Tiffany Yango-Au, and I am from Aiea, Hawaii. That's on the island of Oahu. This is going to be my 22nd year as an educator. Can't even believe it. I've lasted this long, but I think a lot of new things have occurred in the past year that have both challenged but also inspired me. So looking forward to this next year to come. Hawaii is one large state district. The entire state is one district, and we adopted the Springboard curriculum as our secondary ELA curriculum about 9 years ago. So I have been working with Springboard since then. Really effective, I have found, for my students. The learning strategies, the rigorous content, the embedded assessments all seem to strike a chord with my students and with myself, so they are more engaged. I have been using Springboard Digital, or SBD, for about 6 years now. I teach 9th grade English, and so especially last year, SBD was very helpful and an incredible resource to use. I have been with the National Faculty Springboard Professional Learning team now for 4 years, so I'm really excited to be here with you today. I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and I am on a Chromebook, so my face will disappear.
And as you're doing that, Tiffany, I'm just going to wrap up our poll and share that with folks. It's really exciting. We have a lot of people who are new to Springboard, and we're really excited to have you here to learn more about Springboard and Springboard Digital. And we also have a good amount of folks who have used Springboard a little bit, or Springboard Digital a little bit. They've used Springboard for several years. And so, yeah, we're really excited to share this with you.
Awesome. All right. So I think being that the majority are new to Springboard Digital, there will be good specifics, basics that will help you get started. And then also resources that you can use to explore on your own. Okay, let's dive right in. So my primary goal today is to highlight places where SBD can help you better support your instruction and your students. We'll mainly be giving a broad overview of SBD's functionality, but also trying to delve into some of the specifics that you'll likely need to know as you start the year. The most important focus, though, is to help you determine ways to use SBD and its ELA capabilities to effectively integrate with distance learning instruction. Because above all, this platform offers possibilities and flexibility for whatever mode of instruction that your district is providing. In Zoom webinar formats, there are tools to encourage interaction because we definitely want to hear from you. The Q&A section is for questions about content, functionality, or pedagogy. So you want to use this section because you'll see your question and answer paired together when one of the members of our team answers your question. Now, the chat is the section if you want to share thoughts or reflections about what I'm covering. And we'd also like for you to share your chat with all attendees, so if you're comfortable, so that we can benefit from people sharing their ideas. Lastly, make sure to vote in the polls at the end of each section. All of these tools will give me a better idea of what you are thinking. In our agenda today, we're about to wrap up the opening session. So we'll transition to a brief review of the SBD landing page, especially focusing on the resources available in the help feature. That's my favorite feature right now. Then we'll explore a digital lesson, from sharing material through SBD partner Google Classroom to what tools are available in the ebook to enhance student learning. And finally, we'll have some time for Q&A. In general, this webinar is somewhat of a blend between a big picture view of how SBD can benefit your instructional plan this year and some helpful specifics in using SBD effectively. Okay, in the next part of this webinar, I'll be reviewing how to create your SBD Educator account and touching on some of the landing page features, some of the buttons that and icons that you'll frequently use. Okay, so I'm going to stop the presentation part and show you first how I log in as a teacher. Okay, so this is my login page. My school or district, the entire state of Hawaii, is what's called a Clever district. So what this means is we use the Clever program to sign into many different platforms, other programs that our school uses or our district uses. So I would go to the Clever login page for sclever.com and then sign in with my username and password. There's usually some kind of instruction as far as what your username and password is based on. But if you're not sure of your Clever sign-in, then you can click on the Get Help link. All right, so after I enter my username and password, I click Login. And then you can see it leads me to my Clever dashboard. And then SBD or Springboard Digital does have a tile. So I will click on that. And that will lead me to the SBD landing page. Okay, so Clever, again, if you are on a single sign-on, I think there are other single sign-ons, but that's sort of the process that will take place. So what happens if your district is not a Clever district? Then you would go to your specific Springboard URL for your district, okay? So normally the last part of this URL is consistent with this springboardonline.org. That part will be consistent. And then it's up here in the first part where it will be specific to your district. So you would have to figure out what your district name is for the first part, probably like a program specialist or curriculum coordinator would know something like that. And then you would get this page right here. If you never logged in before, completely new to Springboard Digital, you would click on New to Springboard. Then it'll say to enter your access code. So with this, you could probably would get that from your district Springboard coordinator or a program delivery specialist. They'll give you a code to enter in here. And once you do that, then you'd click continue, and the next steps are all set up for you. You would create your account by choosing your password, and then a username will automatically be generated for you. Okay. If you have logged into Springboard Digital before, but haven't consistently used it and therefore have forgotten your password, it happens, you would click the forgot password link. All right, so I'm going to log in. Okay, so now that I'm all logged in, this is the landing page. Ta-da! The tech team for SPD updates this layout based on user feedback from educators and students. And so they'll continue to work to increase the effectiveness and accessibility of the platform. So keep in mind the landing page, the resources within, they are works in progress. New things will be added and modified. And so that's one of the first icons I want to show you. It's the What's New icon, and you'll know it because it's yellow. At times, there'll be a banner also that will tell you what's new. So either one of those things can take you to it. So when you click on it, it would show you some of the new things that are available. So just recently, July 16th, the new progress reports debuted. Okay, another very important icon you should get to know well is the help feature, my favorite. It'll be here in the bottom right corner of whatever page that you're on. And this is the place you can access resources and get support as you navigate through Springboard and SPD. So this drop-down menu right here houses how-to guides and videos. So we just walked through how to create and log in to your educator accounts. So for this one, if you click on My Account, you will see a step-by-step guide complete with screenshots. You might also see a video tutorial of how to do those accounts. So if I clicked on My Account, there's all the different ways. Other processes that I'll go over today will also be found in this help feature, so you can access it at your own pace. Now, let's say that you have a problem. You encounter a problem while you're using SPD, right? I'm sure we've all experienced our share of tech glitches in this past year of pandemic learning. So there is an option on the help menu to report a problem. This is the quickest way to get a response and hopefully a solution to your problem. A customer ticket is automatically created for your issue, and then a representative should be contacting you shortly. Okay, what else? Other frequently used icons, the class toggle. So here's where you would see all of your periods listed out, your English classes. So you can quickly choose which class that you're going to be using. You can also add or edit a class from this icon, and it'll take you right to that class roster page, which I'll go over in more detail in a bit. And then wherever you are in the Springboard digital process, this button right here, the Springboard blue button, this is like your home button. So anytime you press it, it'll get you back to this landing page. All right, this large blue banner here is for your digital instructional materials. So again, it is a toggle. If you click on it, all of the materials that you have for that class, the product that you've added is here and you can access it, such as your actual book itself. So this is my English 1, so 9th grade book. But also the workshops available. So the close reading workshop, language workshop, and writing workshops. Okay, this skinny white banner is very useful. You can access any of those resources with a simple click. So the first one is the ebook. You'll be using this quite a bit because it is your digital teacher edition. everything that is in your hard copy is also in the digital version. And that same thing goes for students and their ebook. So if you're starting in distance mode or even in hybrid mode, you're concerned about students not being able to physically pick up their hard copy student editions, that's fine. They will have everything that was in that hard copy edition in the digital version as well. And then there's also a quick link button that will take you to the last activity that you access for that class. Okay, the teacher resources. These are specific to the digital product you're selecting. So what is about to load are the teacher resources for the English 1 book. They include asynchronous activities that you can download and post into your Google Classroom or whatever LMS you're using. They also have communication tools you can email to your students and their families. So finding the resources, very easy, like graphic organizers, the text complexity of the different passages. It's a simple process. You just click on the checkbox filtering. Also, sorting can occur by audience. So you could look for things that are specifically for students or for the teacher versions. And then again, by type of resource. So for example, if you're looking for the rubrics of any of the embedded assessments in that English 1 book, I would click on that and then I could see it right here. The assessments is the next button, and they are organized again by the product. So these are the assessments within the English 1 book. The first part is the unit reading assessments. And so these are available in both digital and print form. And basically they are meant to be a culminating summative reading assessment for that part of the unit. So you would do this ideally right before or right after the embedded assessment for that unit. And you can see there would be multiple choice, checkbox, that kind of format, but there's also an open response, so a writing prompt as well. The other type of assessment offered is the activity quiz. So you can see they're listed here. Now these are just offered digitally, but basically every activity in the unit has an activity quiz as an option you could use with your students. These activity quizzes are short, between 2 to 5 questions long, and they focus on reading standards. So you could assign these to students as exit passes or independent work at the end of an activity. And then I'll touch upon how to assign these through Google Classroom or another learning management system later. Once students have taken one of the assessments, then they're able to look at their data, and you're able to analyze student data by clicking on the progress reports. This will help you to best inform your instruction. It can also be a good communication tool for parents and students. So this feature has recently been updated. Remember, we saw it in the What's New feature based on educator feedback. So let's take a look at this layout. On the first page, you can quickly select the assessment that you want. So assuming you have given different quizzes, you can select which one you want. And then it'll give you at a glance the class average of proficiency and then how many students have completed it. By clicking on the assessment report, you can then see how each student performed by question. So I have 2 students in my sample class, Lavender Brown and Pansy Parkinson, go Harry Potter. And so you can see how they did on each of the questions. Okay. Other information, so if you click on a question, you are able to, on this side menu here, see the question that was given and the answer, as well as open up to see the standard related to that question, and the depth of knowledge level, the DOK, and the Bloom's level for that question. So I'm excited about this. you can use that kind of information in many ways. So for example, in my district, we have an educator evaluation system. And so part of that includes tracking student growth in those areas. So I'd be able to know each question's specific level, and this will be important as I analyze a student's progress. Okay, so the professional learning tab is next. And this gives you access to modules hosted on academic merit. So you would click on the e-learning resources. And then ELA. This is a great way to get a refresher if it's been a while since your initial institute, or you just sort of want to pace it out on your own. The different versions of the book are available. So the national modules are here. And again, this is similar. The foundational modules here are very similar to what you went over in your initial institute. There's also modules for the workshops. So close reading, writing, and the new language workshops, you can do these modules at your own pace and earn those continuing education units. So I definitely recommend browsing through both of these tabs when you get a chance. And then over here is the webinar tab that Amanda talked about earlier, where you can see these webinars. They're uploaded and you can, again, go through them at your own pace. All right, finally, we're at the class roster. This is where your list of students will be and the materials assigned to them. So you can see I would have like the different periods listed here. Okay, so let's spend some time here walking through how to create a class and add students. Okay, so again, if you are in a clever district like mine, let me show you that. Your rosters are already created for you. So you can see here, these are my rosters for my incoming freshman class. All you need to do is to assign the product, and actually those have already been assigned for me. So I would go to the class roster page. I'd click open a class. In add product, I could open that up and choose the product that I need for that class. Then down here, I would say add selected product. Any new student who transfers into my class will automatically be added. So this is, again, if you are in a Clever District or single sign-on platform. Okay, but if you are not, the process to make a class is still pretty simple. You go to that class roster tab, and then you would click create class. You're going to be entering in those details. So I could say, and go out, English 9. Choose my subject, which in this case would be English Language Arts. Put my period. And then do the start and end date. Now, in most cases, this will just be the entire school year. But if you work on semesters or something like that, you would put those dates in. And then you just click create class. Okay, so it will automatically remind you, don't forget to add the product. That's the next step. So here's my class now. And then a number of products on my version, but in your version, it might be just the ones that you need. So I would do this English 1 National 2021 and click on that. And then I click add selected product.
And just a note for folks, we are also continuing to improve this experience. So keep an eye out on the What's New section in Springboard Digital for an update on this shortly.
Absolutely. And I have some screenshots of that as well, so I can show you what that might look like. Once you have added your product, you do have this class access code. So this is the code that you'll give to students so that they can join your classes. It would be very similar to the way you set up your educator account. If your students do not have Springboard accounts yet, they would go to your district Springboard URL, and when they click new to Springboard and where it says enter access code, you'd be giving them this code to access or whatever for your class. If they already have a Springboard account, then they could log in and then click join class and enter this class code. And again, all of these instructions are in the help feature as well. So right here under class roster. Okay, but as Amanda mentioned, it's currently undergoing layout changes to help streamline the process of creating classes. So I do have some screenshots to show you of that. Okay, so this is our new layout coming soon. On this first page here, when you click on that class roster tab, this is what the first page will give you. So you'll be able to see all of your classes listed with the number of students that are in your class, the products, and also that class code. Then when you click on create a new class, on the right side, you'll see a menu appear of that information that we talked about to enter in, as well as in the next tab, course ebooks. This is where you would click to add your product. So a nice change, I think, much more streamlined, and should be ready for use in about a month, I guess. I think that's the plan.
Yeah, it should be before then, because we
awesome.
know a lot of folks are creating their rosters shortly. So yes, we're aiming to get that out as soon as we can. But in the interim, Tiffany walked you through both options. So it's really a facelift on the how to create a roster as opposed to a really new experience. It'll just look a little cleaner.
Yes. And that matters. We all know now, since we're relying a lot on digital, that layout does definitely matter. Okay, the last part I want to show you about the landing page is the links to our partners. So these are here all at the bottom of the landing page. And if you want more information about any of these partners, I recently gave an overview in a webinar a few weeks ago, and that's already posted in that professional learning tab that we went over earlier. So that is the landing page and some of the SPD basics in a nutshell. Please respond to the poll and let me know what feature you plan to explore further. Nice.
Fantastic. Okay.
Great. Yes, I definitely use the teacher resources quite a bit. And those activity quizzes, they're really good to use for exit passes and things like that, because it is very short. Most of them are 2 questions long. So it's very helpful in that sense. All right. Well, now let's move on to the nitty gritty.
And just as you're transitioning, Tiffany, just a reminder to folks that if you have any questions, please go ahead and drop them in the Q&A, and we'll go ahead and respond to those.
Awesome. Okay, so we will definitely be with our students in some way in a few short weeks, or in my case, even less. So how would you start to prepare? Ideally, you will have the time to sit and explore these materials. You would go through that purposeful planning process we learned in the initial institute. So please, go seek out that refresher module if you need. And let's say you've now done that, you've processed the unit, you know what you're going for, and now it's time to look at an individual activity. Whether you plan to project your copy or share your screen with your ebook during synchronous learning time, or you're going to have students access their own digital copies and work independently, the ebook has a lot of flexibility. So the cycle that Springboard normally uses, right? Plan, instruct, assess, and adapt. I'm going to be sharing how to go through that for an individual activity using SBD. Okay, before I show you, I'm going to start with sharing ebook materials. I do want to talk about how the ebook can be accessed from different learning management systems. So the large majority of Springboard educators and their districts use Google Classroom. My district uses Google Classroom as well. As the primary learning management system. So that's why Springboard focused on integrating with this system, especially it was one of the partners down there at the bottom. But we do know there are districts also using Canvas or Schoology or some other learning management system. And we do want to assure you that Springboard Digital does work with these systems like it has in the past. So if you're using Canvas, this is sort of a screenshot of what your platform would look like. You could access the ebook from the assignments link on the left side menu. If you are using Schoology, it's similar. You can also access the ebook from a left side menu, but this time under materials. And then again, if you are just using a different learning management system, that login process that we use, that's how students can get to their ebook easily. Okay, once everyone is in the ebook, what I'm about to show you, all educators and students can access that no matter how you got there. Okay, so let me show you. We're here right now on the landing page. So the first thing I want to do is to get to the activity that I'm planning to use for my classes. So I would go to either that ebook link or this quick link here. I would navigate to my table of contents icon. So this is in the top left with the 3 dots and 3 lines. This scroll button right here will take me to my various units. So let's say I want to do activity 1.4. I could click on that. All right, so here I am now in the activity, and I do want to be able to make sure that students can access this activity. So keep in mind, when I share it to students, they would still need to log into both their Google Classrooms and the SBD account. To share ebook material, you would go up to the top right-hand corner, and there's an icon that says Share to Google Classroom. So I could click on that. And then a pop-up will open and you're able to choose what you want to share. So in most cases, you'll probably post the complete activity, especially if you want students to complete everything independently, or even when you plan to work through it together face-to-face. However, there may be other times when you just want to post a certain part of the activity, so you're able to choose that as well. So in this case, I want the whole thing. So I'm going to click complete page and then click next. Now I'm able to choose which class I'm posting it to. So in that menu would be a list of all of your Google Classrooms that you created. And then I'm able to choose how I want to share this information. So if you just want to post the activity materials, you don't want to have a deadline for it, you don't want to have point values for it, then making an announcement or creating materials is your best option. So I'm going to choose make an announcement and then click go. One thing I want to show you is that you're able to post to all of the students in your Google Classroom or just some of them. Okay, so I can make a message to my students and then click post. Then just to double check, I'll click on view and I can see now that it's been posted. Okay, so again, posting to specific students could be helpful in a blended learning situation. Maybe you just want to post to the students who are asynchronous or vice versa. Okay, so now I know students can easily access the materials. The next step I do is to look at the teacher wrap to get a sense of how the activity could be laid out. So your teacher wrap icon is right below. It looks like a map. Flexibility is the name of the game for Springboard. We want what's best for your students and your situation. So the teacher wrap is able to be edited. You could click edit on and then make your changes based on what would work for your students. So what the teacher wrap suggests is starting with the learning targets and also the opening writing prompt. So I usually have some type of bell work or do now for students to do as we get settled at the start of class. So maybe I want to set up that opening writing prompt as my bell work. What I could do is add on a sticky note of instruction. So I would go to the opening writing prompt, I'd highlight a certain portion of it, and then I'm able to use this menu here. This is our annotations menu. Sticky note is right there at the top, so I'll click on that. And now I'm able to write some instructions for students. So I could say, please complete this writing. Sorry. In the first 5 minutes of class. Then I would, I'm able to, modify formatting, font size, all those kinds of things. I click outside and then the sticky note is here. So I could have this projected as students enter, and so they would know to log in and do that. I could have it shared on like a Zoom screen, or this will show up in their individual student copies. So even if they were at home doing this independently, they would see these instructions. Okay. All right. Once I've made that my bell work, then I know the next step would be to unpack my learning targets. So I could do this ahead of time and have students open up their ebook and it's already done, or I can do this synchronously with my students. So again, that would mean using the annotations menu. So when you unpack your learning targets, right, you circle the skills that students are going to be doing in that activity, and you underline the concepts that they'll be learning. So I could select analyze. And then you can see here are some annotation tools like circle, underline, the metacognitive markers right here. So I'm going to choose circle. And sometimes that happens where I miss it. So I'll try that again. There we go. And then so students will be doing the skill of analyze, and they are going to be learning the concept of developing characters through a narrator. So I'm going to highlight that phrase and click on underline. Okay, and so on and so forth. One of the principles of Springboard is backwards design. So that means each activity purposefully leads up to the embedded assessment or that culminating final project of the unit. So normally I'd have the unpacked embedded assessment posted in my classroom, and that's where I would refer to it in person. But last year we were all distance learning, so I made Google Drawings instead. And what I can do then is to put that link for that Google Drawing in a sticky note for students to access. So to add a link in your sticky note, you click on this link icon here, paste in the URL to that link, and you can title it something. It will open up in a new tab for students, so it's fairly easy. So here is what my Google Drawing unpacked embedded assessment would look like. Students could then drag the red arrow to where they think our current activity that we're doing today relates to the embedded assessment or that culminating final project. Okay, so I'm processing through the article, the activity, and I get to the About the Author section. So the teacher recommended emphasizing the information that the author, in this case, Edward P. Jones, writes about real places and buildings. So especially in Washington, D.C., where he grew up. So after I take a quick skim of the text, I realize that there are specific roads mentioned. So this is a place I could possibly use a digital resource like Google Maps. So again, in a sticky note, I have now put a link to the map that the characters walk to school in this passage the first day. So students would be able to click on that link and see the route that the main character and her mother takes as they walk to school. This allows my students to connect more with the characters. I could talk about how, well, this is 0.5 of a mile, but the main character is a kindergartner just starting school. So how long do you think that walk is going to take? And therefore kind of getting them in the frame of mind as they process the passage. I'll also take a quick look at the vocabulary terms, but I'll notice that they are specific to the text only. So I'm probably not going to have students add them to a word wall, but I might have some images ready to show for clarification. And if you click on the vocabulary word, it'll take you to where it is in the text, and students are able to click on it to see a synonym. All right, the As You Read instructions shows that students should focus on details for character and setting. So I'm going to highlight them using that annotations tool in different colors. So I want students to pay attention to those two concepts. The first one being characters, I'll do that one in orange. And the second one being setting, I'll do that one in green. I'm going to want students to mimic this annotation pattern in their own ebooks. So any details they find about characters should be highlighted in orange. Any details they find out about setting should be highlighted in green. Another feature that I often use is the audio feature. I want students to completely focus on the task of finding the details. So I'm not going to have them read the passage aloud. This allows students to focus on the character and setting instead of worrying about reading fluency. So this audio is also available in the student ebook. So if they're doing it independently, they can still use the feature. So I'll play a little bit of the passage.
The First Day by Edward P. Jones. On an otherwise unremarkable September morning, long before I learned to be ashamed of my mother, she takes my hand and we set off down New Jersey Avenue to begin my very first day of school.
All right, so a nicely read audio that students can definitely use. Also, if you have a high EL population like I do, I also encourage the use of a resource like Google Translate. So what I might do is I may select some of the passage and then copy and paste it into Google Translate. So I have a high Filipino population at my school. So I might direct them to that resource to help them out. Continuing through the activity, I'm now down at the working from the text section. So this comes with a table in SBD for students to respond to. To answer questions, students would click and then answer the question. And again, they are able to manipulate that formatting. They can use bullets, they can bold if they need to. As an educator, I can change my view. So if we're looking at this table down here, up here in the yellow, this will tell you what copy of the ebook you're using. So this is specifically for my, let's call it my period 1 class, right? My using SBD class. Anything I put in this class copy, everybody enrolled in that class would be able to see in their own ebooks, okay? But if I click on it, I'm able to see individual student copies of people in that class. So if I click on Lavender Brown, I'd be able to see her responses specifically and her annotations. So this is now Lavender's copy. I can see she's answered the opening prompt. And then I can see some of her annotations here. When you're in your class copy, a feature that SBD added in the past year is the class aggregate view for student responses. So I could, if I scroll back down to that, click on the side to view all of the responses from the students in that class. So here you can see the responses from both Lavender and Pansy. This is a really good way to be able to make a better determination of how the class as a whole is comprehending the activity. So think of this as like formative assessments. Are your students on task? Are they understanding the concepts that you're going over? So flexibility, again, is something Springboard emphasizes. So I could even choose to do this part of the activity, this working from the text table, in groups and chunk up the text, right? Have student groups in charge of certain parts of it. Then what I would do is, instead of having them complete it in their ebook, I could recreate this table in an organizer in Google Docs. So therefore, they're able to support and collaborate on the same document. So on a sticky note, I provided a link to that organizer. And now I can have students working on the same document all together. Okay, as I keep going down through the text, I get to the language and writer's craft section. This is a trouble spot for many of my students, especially look at this topic, right? Subordinating conjunctions and complex sentences. That can be daunting for certain students. So I'm gonna make sure to do some direct synchronous instruction with the whole class here. I can highlight the definition of what a complex sentence is, have them added into some English notebook, things like that. I could use my teacher resources that I showed earlier. In that, there is a section for grammar activities. So I could already have this sort of assigned for students to do extra grammar practice on clauses. Or I could use one of our partners, quill.org. By clicking that quill.org button and logging in, there are several passage aligned activities, especially in the 9th grade Springboard ELA, which would allow students to practice their skills specifically using the passage that they just read. So here it is, the first day, I'm able to use this passage aligned activity, and it looks like this. So students would spend about 20 minutes of time practicing combining sentences together using that subordinating clause. And now we're at the check your understanding, and I wanted this to be my exit pass. So now I can show you how to assign a section of the ebook for student work. The process is the same that I showed right at the beginning for sharing materials. You would click on Share to Google Classroom. This time though, I would only share the Check Your Understanding. Again, choosing the class. And now I'll click on Create Assignment. So What Create Assignment does is it allows me to then, again, I can choose which student to assign it to. I can give instructions, but now I can also give point value and assign a deadline. I can even choose which topic to organize it under so students can find it easily on their classwork tab. And then again, I can check to make sure. And here it is posted. Students would be able to click the link. Once I have it assigned, then students are able to work on that assignment. I can show you, I'll show you my teacher copy, but the same thing is there in the student copy as well. If a student, responds to the check your understanding, they can then click on the print icon. And then they're able to save it as a PDF. Once it's saved as a PDF, they can then upload it into Google Classroom, and that's where you can then open it and assign your grade. That's one way you can do it. Another way, especially with that class aggregate view, sometimes people have their learning management system open on one window and then the class aggregate view on the other window, and then they can simply enter in their grades at a glance that way. So whatever is easy for you to use, there's a lot of options there. Once students have turned it in and I've evaluated, I can then return that work with a grade and students can look at it. So what about homework or asynchronous activities? If I want to know more about students' reading comprehension for the activity, I could assign the activity quiz. So again, remember that's in the assessments portion. I would click on that link. I've actually already assigned it, so I'll show you on here. There's a way you can say share to Google Classroom, and it would automatically do that for you. But I'm going to show you the copy link feature. So if I click copy link, I can again choose who I'm going to give this to, click continue. And now I have a link that I can email to them. This link can be posted in their ebook so they can get to it then. So a number of different ways they can access that activity quiz. Remember though that when they do click that link, they do have to log into their Springboard Digital for it to work. Once students have completed the quiz, they would mark the assignment as completed in Google Classroom or whatever learning management system. And then you could go to the progress report tab to see the results. I can also show you, this is sort of what an activity quiz would look like. So this one is 3 questions long. It does have the standards associated to it. And then most of the time it is a multiple choice situation. Okay, so I think that's basically how I would process an activity. Hopefully, that step-by-step kind of going through it is helpful for you. You can start to have ideas of what would work for you, what links you'd want students to have access to, that you can post, the things that you could have students use, the annotation tools. Hopefully something here has connected and you're able to think about what you want to do in your classes. So please look at the poll and see what digital tool you're excited or curious about.
And Tiffany, I know that we are close on time. We have just a few moments. one
Yes.
thing that I was hoping you could share a little bit, because, as you mentioned, this year, some districts may be going back full in person 5 days a week.
Yes.
Some may be hybrid, some may be giving the option of async or in person. And
Mhm.
so I know that pre-COVID, you used Springboard Digital a lot in your classroom.
Yes.
And I think you've walked through a lot about how you would use this in like a hybrid or a distance learning environment.
Mhm.
But for folks who are going to go back 5 days a week in their classes, can you just share, a quick overview of how you've used Springboard Digital when you're back in person 5 days a week, which I know is a plan for
Absolutely.
you?
Yes, it's coming. It's definitely coming. So if I were in, so again, activity quizzes is something that, you know, everything I've sort of shown, you could also do synchronously as well when you're in person. But some of the things like if you are in your, have students in their ebook, um, you could have them using those annotation tools, sharing, oh, here's a detail that I picked up on. They could share that in small groups. You could then highlight it on your copy. So for example, with each student doing their annotation, each group could say, oh, here's something that I highlighted, and then I could do the same thing on my class copy so that it's projected. Students can see all of their annotations kind of together. You could use the aggregate view to kind of say, okay, here's what everybody said, like display that. There's kind of a lot available. Playing the audio, maybe I choose not to do that if they're face to face with me. Maybe I'll have them do partner reading or something like that instead.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Again, a lot of what you can do asynchronously, you can definitely also do synchronously as well. Ooh. So Google Classroom, I guess a lot of districts are using that. But yes, for me, the process of doing the PDFs, I was using that quite a bit at the beginning. And then when the class aggregate view did get developed, sometimes I just did find it easier to have Google Classroom open in one window and then the class aggregate view in another window. And then I could like just look and then give the grade at the same time instead of opening up each PDF. But it's a question of like what's more streamlined for you.
Great. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know you're wrapping up and you're going to show just again a reminder of the support resources, the help feature that's available within Springboard Digital. And we unfortunately don't have time for questions, but you can always email us at sbtechsupport@collegeboard.org to answer any questions that you have, or through the help app, you can ask a question, request information. There also will be a survey that's coming out. You'll receive it later this evening to just help us understand if you would like additional webinars or what other additional support you need as you go back to school. So it's a short survey, but it does help us continue to improve the experience. And I want to just thank everybody for taking the time and joining us today. Again, this webinar will be posted in the professional learning section. And we wish you a great back to school season. And thank you, Tiffany, for taking the time to lead us through this as you're getting ready to go back to school this week.
Absolutely. So again, just that reminder, right, in that help feature, there is a whole lot right here under your topic of ELA ebook to help explore those things. But I did just want to stop sharing so I can look at you all. Thank you so much for being here, because I know everybody has, the school year is going to start before we know it. So thank you for taking that time. And thank you so much, Amanda and Jessica and Ray, for helping answering all those questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Have a really wonderful day.